Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I just wanted to sit down and have a bit of a chat about the game overall, specifically in relation to the news that we got yesterday about Seasons 2.0, some of the fallout, and the discussions that have sparked since that released, as well as a few other connected topics around the general idea of what the title of this video is, at least what I think I'm going to call it. Is the Division 2 now back on track? We've obviously been in a bit of a slump, and there's been kind of issue after issue and controversy after controversy for the last several weeks. Is this the start of a better path forward, is what I want to discuss. So hopefully you all enjoy, and as always, I would love to hear your thoughts by the end of it down below. But let's start with the seasonal character thing, as that's obviously what everybody's talking about right now after yesterday's news. In case you missed the video, I will link it in the top corner, the description, all that stuff. But they made an announcement that they are changing their plans with Seasons 2.0, with particular focus on moving forward without the idea of seasonal characters in the picture, which is a big change, obviously, from their original pitch and plans that they told us about back at Ubisoft Forward. And what you've immediately seen is, I wouldn't say a majority, it's honestly hard to tell with any of the stuff who the majority is, who just has the loudest voice, all that stuff, but a good amount of people saying this is the wrong call, that they've now, walked back on their vision, that they should have just stuck with it, seen how it played out, all that stuff. Something that I think you always have to keep in mind, whether we're talking about gaming, entertainment at large, politics, like whatever, people who are upset or who disagree with something are always going to be the ones feeling the most inclined to speak out, to share their opinion, to do whatever, right? That's just human nature. That's what it is. If you're mad about something, you're going to talk about it. If you're happy about something, maybe you're going to say, hey, I like this, or you're just not going to say anything, because why do you need to? And so it's not a shock to me that upon the announcement of seasonal characters, you saw the people who were very against it saying, this is bad, and now that they're saying they're not going to be there, the people who are maybe for it are saying, I'm kind of sad that it's no longer coming. Now, at the end of the day, I don't know how the devs specifically came to the decision and conclusion that they did. I don't know what metrics they used to determine that this was the best move forward. I would hope that they were using more than just like social media comment sections and Reddit posts, because that's typically not the best way to gauge an actual majority or percentage. But something to keep in mind, I've seen some people saying like this is something that they started working on recently. They've been working on the idea of Seasons 2.0 for a long time. We first heard about it in early 2023, which means that at least conceptually it was in the plans and thought about since 2022, right? So they've done a lot of testing over time, whether that's with focus groups or internally, whatever the case is. Maybe there was already a certain amount of skepticism about seasonal characters, and once they saw some of the community's reaction to it, that pushed them over the edge to say, let's no longer go forward with this. We just don't know, and we're likely never going to know. I still do think it was pretty crazy for them to make that bold of a decision without having any kind of a public test server or, just a demonstration of how it's actually going to work in gameplay, in practice, but it is what it is. They made the decision. One thing I did want to briefly mention is that I've already seen since yesterday several comments on my video or even other people's videos and discourse around the community, bundling me in with kind of that archetype of like the toxic content creator that helps get something canceled before we've even seen it. You can go back and watch the videos I made on Seasons 2.0 and the idea of seasonal characters. I was in support of it from the beginning, and that caught me a lot of flack. I mean, a lot of negative comments, of messages I got of people saying that I'm horrible for supporting this, blah, blah, blah. So say what you will. You're welcome to have your opinion. But I, from day one, as I said, I was somebody who was open and receptive to the idea. I said, and I've said in videos since then, that I was excited for the kind of this renewed progression, a reset on difficulty, and a move away from some of all this legacy power that we have that makes the game incredibly easy. I was excited for there being a renewed loot grind, because, a lot of the loot that we get these days is simply meaningless, but if we were to have to start over on a rolling basis and reacquire some of that stuff, that would be kind of fun. That all doesn't really matter at this point. What I'm saying is, I was not somebody who was just blindly against this with no reason. So there you go. The other thing I wanted to mention is that since the news yesterday, I've seen a lot of people concerned and saying, well, great, because of this change, we're now just back to doing the same old stuff we're doing every season, the same old slog with no change, and it's going to be incredibly boring. And although I understand that some people are upset about seasonal characters not coming in, and even though I do agree that seasonal characters would have helped accentuate these other changes they're making even more, that's not the case, that we're just going to be doing the exact same thing once Seasons 2.0 goes live. I'll put the picture up on screen so that you can see it, but in the FAQ for seasonal characters, and they've talked about this in other places, but this is just kind of the most consolidated format, it says that Seasons 2.0 will consist of 15 weeks of varied activities, such as seasonal missions, seasonal projects, manhunt scouts, and priority objectives. So again, even though seasonal characters was the format in which we were going to be experiencing this new thing, they still have a lot of plans for seasons beyond just seasonal characters. That is still coming to the game. They've said that the only real change that's happening is that they're transitioning all of this from happening on a seasonal character to focusing on our main characters. So like I said, we're still getting these new seasonal activities. Then we know the Manhunt Scouts is the new format of story content. We don't know what stuff like priority objectives and seasonal missions are, but those are coming. We're still getting the new master difficulty. That's coming with the finale and climax missions at the end of every season. So I bring this all up to say, let's just wait and see what they have in store before, spelling doom and gloom again, even though that's what happened with seasonal characters to begin with. But you know what I mean? We haven't seen anything still. We still never saw any gameplay for any of this for Seasons 2.0 for seasonal characters, so let's see what some of these changes actually are before saying that nothing is going to change at all. Okay, but beyond just the topic of seasonal characters, like I said, I also wanted to raise the question, does this set the Division 2 back on track? Are we now on a more positive swing for the game? Again, there are a lot of people who are bummed about the cancellation of seasonal characters or the idea to move away from them. I get it. However, since posting that video yesterday with the news and since, looking over a lot of the community's reaction, I have seen a lot of people saying that because they've now announced this, they plan to, become reinvested again with the Division 2's future plans, whereas they were saying if they went forward with seasonal characters, that would not be the case. Come on, exotic component. I know you want to drop. I know you do. I know you really, really do. And, oh, tough. And so in addition to a lot of those people now being more back on board for the game, I would also argue that in the last week or 2 weeks, we've started seeing a pretty good push from the dev team on the other big issue and controversy that the game has been facing, which is the technical state of the game. What do I mean by that? Well, last week we saw them do essentially a hotfix via that maintenance to fix up the issues with the weapon sounds of LMGs and rifles and spec weapons that was going on. And that was, in my opinion, a very good move for them to do. It was something that I talked about in my video when I talked about the state of the game, that it would be beneficial for them to do more regular hotfixes and maintenances like that to get these fixes out quicker. Now, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying they did it because of my video or because I said it in that, but I just think it's a smart idea for the fixes that can be done server-side, because it's important to remember that not every fix can be done like that. Some have to have a client patch in order to be fixed up. It's a matter of how they're implemented into the game. But for those ones that can be done server-side, it's good to show a sense of urgency from the dev team that they want to get this stuff fixed up, because it does matter a lot to players, and I think we saw pretty good reactions from that hotfix last week. In addition to that hotfix, we're also seeing them begin to acknowledge some long-standing and pretty important issues that the community has voiced their concerns about. The main one that I'm referring to is the ammo that you lose upon the weapon swap, that whole issue that's been in the game ever since Project Resolve went live in February. I made a post about this on Friday, both here on YouTube and over on Twitter, so maybe you saw it, but they finally added it to the known issues board. It's currently under the investigating category, so there's no projected timeline of when they might fix it. But again, I just think it's a very good show of faith for them to finally actually officially acknowledge it. I mean, they had said it before on social media, but it had never been added to the known issues board like that. And again, I think that's all a lot of people want. We understand that not all this stuff is going to get fixed overnight. They're aware of thousands of bugs. They can't deal with them all at once. There has to be a priority list in place, but we just want the acknowledgement that it's something they know about. They're looking into it. And so, yeah, hopefully that's one that they can get fixed up sometime in the future. I know a lot of people would appreciate it. And so with the conversation, I would say, starting to shift a bit more positively when it comes to Seasons 2.0 in light of the seasonal character news, and with the technical side of the game having a few good pushes and advances being made, it brings up the question, like I said, is this the start of our path back towards a more positive spin and positive outlook when it comes to the future of the Division 2? Because, I would say Year 5, Seasons 2 and 3 had a pretty good trajectory. I mean, people were mostly happy with what those delivered, even if it wasn't absolutely everything they wanted. And there was people were excited about what was coming in the future. Seasons 2.0, before we really knew what that entailed, and the DLC was stuff that people were really looking forward to. But I would say for the past 6 weeks or so, ever since Ubisoft Forward, it's been a struggle, man. There's just kind of been issue after issue, controversy after controversy, whether or not they're warranted. That's just dominated the conversation. People aren't talking about what they're looking forward to in the future. They're just talking about what's wrong with the game right now and when is it going to be fixed and all this. So, given that things are going a bit better right now, I wanted to also bring up the fact that we have some pretty good stuff coming up to look forward to, I hope at least. And if it's done right, I think this could be a pretty good swing for the next several weeks or months. Firstly, we have that mysterious August event that is said to be happening for the game. If you don't know what I'm talking about there, I'll link the video I did on it again in the upper corner and down in the description, but there's some kind of event presumably happening in-game that is going to be coming in August. So I would expect we're going to start hearing about that in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks here. And then after that, we've also been talking about it recently, the fact that Star Wars Outlaws releases at the end of August, and that means that they will begin to start work on The Division 3, although that's less related. But more importantly, Julian Garrity, who is the old creative director on The Division 1 and 2, is coming back and stepping into the executive producer role for the entire Division franchise. And why I bring this up, because I was actually talking to a few people about this, I don't know if this is in the plans. I've heard nothing about this. This is purely speculation on my part, and like I said, I've talked to some people who agree. It would be a very good idea for, once that happens, once he transitions and is actually, in his office working on Division stuff again, they should host a stream, whether he hosts it or he's a guest on it, whatever. But do a stream where somebody who has the authority like him to speak on everything with the franchise, to just do a general update about everything. We had Daria talking about way earlier in the year, I'll put a picture of it up on screen, about how while there wasn't any plans to do a dedicated Division Day stream this year like they did last year, that there was something else coming in its place. We never got confirmation if that was the Ubisoft Forward presentation or what that might have been. But imagine, like I said, if once Julian is back, they did a stream where he's there and he kind of just talks about everything with the Division, talking about the current, maybe issues with the Division 2 and how they want to change things moving forward and what they're excited about in terms of the DLC, maybe what they're doing past that. Maybe he gives some very light updates on the Division 3, even though I don't think we'll hear anything substantial there for a long, long time. But also giving updates across the franchise. They said that's what this new executive producer role is going to be. It's cohesion across all projects that the Division is doing. So maybe we'd finally hear more about Resurgence there. Maybe we hear about that webtoon that they said was going to come out in 2024, right? Everything. I feel like doing that kind of a stream now would be the perfect thing for them to do. People just want that reassurance. They want that guidance again, that sense of leadership that we've kind of been missing for these last several months, and especially these last 6 weeks, when people just feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, that everything is a controversy, that everything has an issue. So like I said, I don't know if that's their plan to do something like that, but I think if they did, and if Julian is up to doing something like that, that would be an incredible thing as a first act for him to do as executive producer. I think this community would eat that up. And like I said, I just think it would have a really beneficial impact. But my friends, that is more or less everything that I wanted to cover in this video. I know we covered a lot of topics there. I hope that wasn't too disorienting. But I wanted to talk about some of the fallout from yesterday's news about seasonal characters, as well as, what that just means for the Division 2 and the franchise overall right now. Like I said, it's been a rough couple of weeks, no question. I really hope that with what we're hearing right now and with what we have coming up in these next few months, that we get back on a more positive track. I'm still excited for the remainder of what Seasons 2.0 is bringing to the game, even though seasonal characters seem to no longer be a part of that plan. I'm, of course, very excited for the DLC, and, long-term future, I'm stoked for the Division 3, as I'm sure all of you are. And I really hope that even though things have been rough, even though we've had a tough path to get here, with the small development team, with the canceled projects like Heartland and everything, I hope that in the long term we can look back and say it was worth it for everything that we get coming in the future. I'll shut up now. I feel like I'm rambling. But let me know your thoughts on everything that we went over, whatever you're thinking about the current seasonal character in Seasons 2.0 discussion. Do you think that a stream like I was talking about with Julian coming on as executive producer would be beneficial? Anything else, I would love to hear it down below. As always, plenty more videos coming your way soon, but I appreciate you watching this one. So stay safe, stay tuned, and I'll see you soon. Until then, RogueGold, out.